please, a warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for Gary Dietrich, everybody. Hi, Gary.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Gary,
Hey,
for
guys.
joining.
Hey, Kim. Hey, John. Hey, listen. Well, for one thing, first of all, let me comment on what appears to be, from what I can see here, Mark. Is this a growing merch offering I see behind you here? I mean, it seems like we're getting to be the Macy's store for Mark Thompson. Looks like it's appearing.
Well, the holiday season, Gary, I don't need to tell you how important these stocking stuffers might be for families that are looking to lift their spirits this holiday. So we have the KJO in Exile T-shirt, as Gary has pointed out. We have the tote bag. I think it's one of our best items, the Mark Thompson Show tote bag. We also have the hat, Mark Thompson Show hat. These are flip-flops. I don't think we ever sold even one pair of those. But we have the tumblers. Yeah, what a surprise. The tumblers. And we have the hydration system not represented in this display, but we'll get one up there soon. And Gary, I believe your merch is on the way to you. So you have a piece of the... Yeah.
I am absolutely thrilled, my friend. Cannot wait.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
It is fantastic. So, look, we've gotten some questions about outcomes already in the chat, like the Boebert. Somebody wanted to know what's the story on the Boebert count. Just to put that to the side right away, I think it's too close to call right now, and there are even questions about a bunch of ballots in the Boebert race. So it's a dead heat, I think. Isn't that more or less right? I believe that's right in Lauren Boebert's case.
Yeah, last numbers I saw on that, Mark, had her up by 1 point. So that is one of those nail biters that absolutely continues. Hey, here's some interesting numbers, though. People kind of want to get perspective on where we are. I'm sure you already touched on this, but over the weekend, Nevada and Arizona called in the U.S. Senate for Democrats, so now they are up 50 to 49, giving them effective control of the Senate because of the tie-splitting vote by the vice president. So the Warnock-Herschel-Walker race will certainly be consequential. Could put the Ds up by 2 votes. 50-50. In the House, this is important. In the House, 19 seats left yet to be determined. Republicans up 212 to 204 for Democrats. This is the last thing I'll share, Mark, that's exceptionally interesting. Republicans up by 9 in 9 of those seats, 9 of the 19 remaining. Republicans are leading, and get this, 6 of those 9, the Republicans are leading of the 19. Guess where? In California.
You know, California, New York, Gary, that really flipped the House for the likely flip of the House is owing to those two states, don't you think?
I mean, how ironic is that? Seriously, that these 2 blue states may have contributed more seats for the Republicans to retake control than any other states. Now, part of it is just the sheer number of seats that they have, of course, giving them the 2 most populous states. However, that's still shocking to many people, and the Republicans really poured a lot of resources, especially and surprisingly to many people, right here in California. But how about retaking control of the DCCC's chairman in New York?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's a lot of intrigue yet to go in this campaign, and of course, as we know, Mark, 2024 set to kick off, we think, officially tomorrow night at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, and now I want to get to the legislative agenda, because even in a lame duck session, I think the Democrats have some important legislative items to get to. But what is this, John? Carrie Lake is cutting into Katie Hobbs' lead for Arizona governor, but she will probably not win. It will take a miracle for Lake. Oh yeah, on the governorship in Arizona, that is huge. And Lake, among the election deniers, and now I get to this question, the unpacking or the post-mortem on this, even as we continue to count, would suggest that there were a couple of different elements playing into it. But we touched on this last week, I know, Gary, but I wonder if you could just reiterate. It was something of a repudiation of the Supreme Court overturn, and repudiation is a ding word, you're right. But I also wonder if there wasn't an anti-Trump element as well. And so that's why what you suggest, which is the Trump announcement this week, I think that it puts the Republicans in this odd spot. And I wonder if you can just remark on the election and then looking forward, where the spot that the GOP may be in, and it may extend into the speakership fight.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right about all of that, Mark. I think one thing is really important. The big overarching observation to me about this election is everybody won, everybody lost, and the grand answer to the question of did this particular issue affect it? Yes. What do I mean by that? In certain, well, look, in certain areas, look at Florida, that was a massive red tsunami. They now control not only every statewide office, but both houses of the state legislature. The first time since Reconstruction, friends, 150 years ago since that happened. In other areas, Republicans who thought they had a real shot at taking major seats, Senate, etc., I won't repeat all the places like Pennsylvania, etc., doesn't look like that's going to happen in many of those areas. So, Mark, to your point, yes, I think abortion, especially for younger voters, which, by the way, we had a little bit of this convo last week. Younger voters did not turn out. I was looking at this over the weekend. All the reports are they did not turn out in greater numbers, but they did turn out more strongly for Democrats this time. And it is believed that the abortion issue was the single most motivating factor in that youth vote. And then for others, you're right, the so-called, danger to democracy, that was clearly animating. But look at the Kari Lake vote. By the way, down there in Arizona, it's a 1% lead for the incumbents, for the Democrats. So, there, the issues of the...
repeat that. You dropped out a little bit. The issues of what?
Have some revenants.
They're the issues of what? Repeat that. You just dropped out for a second. In the Kari Lake case,
Mark,
you said,
the issues
no,
of
it's
crime,
no problem. Yeah, of crime, yeah.
Inflation, etc., did take root.
Yeah. It's funny because that's all we heard about in the ramp up, and so it's interesting that is something that is worth revisiting if those results. I mean, certainly, even if Lake loses, you have to respect that showing. The other thing, I thought it was interesting, and then I really do want to get to the legislative agenda. There's this sense now, I think, that celebrity is enough to get you in. And to be fair, celebrity might be. Trump kind of created this notion that if you're famous enough and you have enough of a patina of credibility, which was really, in the case of Trump, created by Mark Burnett with The Apprentice, that somehow you can run for public office and win. And I think you saw that with Dr. Oz, and you see it with Herschel Walker, and maybe you're seeing it with Kari Lake. Now, I mean, again, I don't know that these people have ever been, even president of their homeowners associations, but there is this sense that, name recognition, a celebrity, and that shimmer can carry you to public office.
Well, we know it can get you close. In the case of Oz and Lake and maybe Walker, we don't know if it gets you over the top. But one of the things that the first foundational piece that every campaign strives for is name ID. And in California, for example, a state this large, it is exceptionally difficult to get because you have so many media markets. But if you can achieve that, if you can get over that initial hurdle, then you've got, millions of dollars well spent in the bank already. So that's kind of how the name ID thing works, but it isn't a guarantee. And we're seeing in this election that you've still got to put together a strong campaign, you still got to be credible, and you still got to be right on the issues that voters care about.
Now I want to get to the legislative agenda that the Democrats, even in a lame duck session, could turn to and maybe, in my judgment, need to turn to. And that's related to the Electoral Count Act. I wonder if you could just explain, it was so much in the news as the notion of electors and the notion of the way, all of a sudden we found out the way American elections go down, it's not quite as cut and dry as you might think. And so a couple of the leaks associated with the electoral count and then who sends electors and how elections are certified in states, all of a sudden we kind of got a crash course in that. So the Democrats, I believe, are trying to draft something, have drafted something to address those issues.
That's exactly right, Mark. And, the two co-authors of this are two members of the January 6th committee. One will be a household name to people, Liz Cheney. The other, Zoe Lofgren from the Bay Area. congresswoman. So those are the two co-authors of this legislation. Democrats very much would like to move it through. The challenge right now, Mark, just in terms of sheer legislative challenges, is 17 days. That's the total number of legislative days that remain for Congress this year. And then, of course, after the first year, looks like Republicans will take control of the House. By the way, if people are still wondering how likely that is, Joe Biden literally called Kevin McCarthy over the weekend, on Sunday apparently, before he left on his international trip, and congratulated him on his likely ascension to the speakership of the House. So I think at this point we can say it's as close to a done deal as one would think. So that's why Democrats want to move through the things you're talking about, Mark. It's not going to be easy. If they have to go through the Senate, which all these pieces do, you could face a filibuster on some of these deals. So there'll be valiant efforts. We'll have to see how much of it goes. They still, by the way, have to pass a budget, a defense authorization bill, maybe a debt ceiling limit raise that they'd like to get done, the Democrats. So there's lots to do in 17 days.
Well, I think the debt ceiling you point to is yet another lever that could be used against them once the new Congress is convened. And I guess I might ask you to handicap it. Do you think they'll get to any of that, which you just mentioned? I mean, with the deadline so close?
I think they're likely to get a budget done, but again, it depends on if they come to agreement. The thing about fiscal measures is they start in the House. So that is, of course, still full of turmoil as we speak because its fate is not yet fully decided. So I think, Mark, one of the biggest challenges right now is just that there's no certainty yet. Now we know Democrats are going to be in control of the Senate. But without certainty in the House, everybody's kind of hedging their bets a little bit. Let's see, are we better off waiting? Are we going to get a better deal cut, depending on which interest group you represent or what part of the ideological perspective you're on? Do you think you're going to get a better deal now, before the first of the year, or afterwards? And that could make, concluding negotiations pretty tough.
We're talking to political guru Gary Dietrich. I have just a couple of other items. One is about the presidential run and the Trump announcement tomorrow, and the other is this. You mentioned McCarthy, and I get that Biden may have called McCarthy and all of that, but there is by no means a foregone conclusion associated with his leadership on the House side, right? Might there be something of a fight? I mean, McCarthy is, I think, kind of an embattled figure now. Oh, is Gary there? No? Did we lose him?
You guys still got me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry, guys. I'm in the mobile command center. I'm not driving, but I am in the mobile command center. And,
oh, yeah.
Thank you. And that's at of course, an undisclosed location. And that is why, by the way, people are not being unnecessarily subjected to my video feed. So in any event, that will return at another moment in time. But real quick, Mark, Mark, on this deal, the conservative part of the Republican House conference, the so-called Freedom Caucus, etc., definitely want to hold McCarthy hostage to some degree to some issues. It doesn't look like, the bottom line, Mark, doesn't look like there's a significant challenger to him at this point. The question is, what deals will have to be cut to install him? Okay.
And then finally, it's being mentioned in the chat, anyone can be named speaker. Could they name Trump? I'm sure that's been talked about, and, that's out there. I get it feels like it's clickbait more than a reality.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way that the House conference is going to name Trump. That was something that when he first lost the election back in 2020 was put out there.
Right.
That's not on the radar screen. But there have been other people thrown out there. For example, the gentleman that just almost won the governorship of New York. His name's been thrown out there, but now apparently he's in line for the chairmanship of the Republican National Committee, possibly. So I think you're going to see almost certainly Kevin McCarthy, in the end, is going to be the guy.
I've in this conversation, and then I really want to ask you about the presidential election as it relates to the GOP and sort of that what I think will be just a battle royale. But I want to get your thought on that in a second. But what you've really made clear to me, and it kind of just, I come to this reluctantly, Gary, the sad realization that the fundamental changes to our system of elections, they come slowly or they don't come at all. I mean, here we've just seen this attempted coup. There were every manner of plotter planning legal motions and fake electors. Now, I get that the fake electors are fake. Okay, that's illegal. But the idea somehow that a Secretary of State could just by fiat overturn an election result. I mean, this strikes me as a fundamental problem with our system. And yet, what I'm getting in conversations with you, because you talk about the realities when, it comes to squiring legislation to fix these problems through Congress. What I'm getting is, dude, it ain't going to happen. This flawed system with these exposed problems is likely going to continue the way it is.
Well, Mark, I tell you, there's a fundamental sort of institutional challenge here, and it's this. Remember, elections are constituted. We have 50 different elections in a presidential race. Each state, of course, has its own electoral laws. We've talked about this in the past. Its own calendar. We've certainly seen that. Some states got their votes counted in 24 hours. Others are still going, like California. So the challenge is respecting the integrity of state election laws while wanting to maintain a respectful and integrous federal election system. And thereby, lies the challenges. That's part of what the Electoral Count Act is supposed to address. But we'll see how much it comes to pass.
Yeah, I mean, based on our conversation, it doesn't sound like it's going to. So even though I think it should be a front and center priority, along with, as you described, the fiscal ceiling. Now, quickly to the election. We're talking to Gary Dietrich just in the last minute. Gary, so Trump announces, that seems inevitable. He has a solid group of people who are in the thrall of Trump, and it's a cult of personality. It's a movement, you can call it, okay, for any number of reasons. You've seen all the rallies, you've heard all the sound bites, you've the irrational justifications for whatever, but it is a cult-like following. So that's real, right? So then you have the GOP dealing with what is the poison of Trump, and now it's starting to seep into this midterm election in the ways that you described, and maybe just it was part of the result that we've been dealing with and that we're seeing for the GOP. But my question to you is, so then they have a more mainstream version of Trump, if you will, Ron DeSantis, and others perhaps, Cruz or whomever may also enter in primary. My question to you is, what to anticipate, and maybe it's an unanswerable question, but the effect of Trump on this party. I was calling it a battle royale. It really may be pretty bloody in political terms.
Yeah, I think you're going to see people lay pretty low. The DeSantis's, even the Mike Pence's, Cruz, all these going to be laying pretty low here at the outset. I think they want to get the House up and running in January, see how it functions, see where all the dust settles from this.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're saying see how the dust, you dropped out a little bit, but see where the dust settles. So there won't be any immediate reaction on the part of GOP to the announcement that Trump is likely to make tomorrow, is what you're saying. Did we lose him?
Some people screaming no.
Yeah. We lost you a little bit, but I got what you're saying. Everybody's laying back and they're going to see where the political dust settles. That's interesting, and that's smart, probably. Yeah. But wow, there's no shortage of those who clearly are positioning themselves to make that run. I include Mike Pence. All of a sudden, Mike Pence is, in his own restrained way, he's speaking out. So there's a lot going on here. Love having you on the show, pal. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. But if there's other breaking political news, we'll hit the bat beam and try to bring you in sooner. Gary Dietrich,
thanks,
everybody.
Buddy.
Yeah. What's that, Gary?
I was just going to say thank you, and we will be definitely efforting to get the command module audio straightened out.
It's cool, man. It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's fantastic. It is fantastic. All right, Gary Dietrich. Thanks, Gary.